As a maternity care provider, you hold and care for others every day. Who holds you? Welcome to the Resilient Birth Worker. I'm Sarah, naturopathic doctor and lactation consultant. This is the space for midwives, doulas, nurses, and other maternity care providers feeling stuck between offering the care mothers truly need, the demands of our culture, and the restrictions that serve the system instead of the humans within it. Together, we're on a journey to more rest, resilience, and healing. When you feel more resourced, so too are the families you hold. When your energy is restored, so too is the life you desire. Let's root in. Welcome back. We're going to begin today with something a little different. I want to make sure that your body feels resourced before we go where we're going. Because today, we're going to go deep. And I want you to feel steady before we get there. So wherever you are right now, take a breath, a slow one, in through the nose and out through the mouth. Feel your feet on the floor or the weight of your body in the chair. Feel gravity holding you. You don't have to hold yourself right now. Now notice the sensations of breath moving in and out of your body. You might feel the air moving at your nostrils or the back of your throat. Perhaps you're noticing the movement of your chest or belly. Invite your body to slow and expand the breath, inhaling for a count of 3 and exhaling for a count of 6. And for the next couple of breaths, as you exhale, see if your body is willing to soften a little deeper into the support of gravity. One more breath. Inhale. And a long, slow exhale. Good. You're here, and you're ready. There's a term I've been exploring for a couple of years, especially through the research base. I've been waiting for the right moment to bring it into this space because it can be heavy, and it's important. And I think many of you will feel something shift when you hear it. The term is moral injury. You may not have heard this term before, or maybe you have, and it gave you that feeling of recognition, the feeling of finally seeing a name for something you've been carrying without language. In episode 2, we talked about the system. We named the conveyor belt, the double load of care work, the culture of clinical distance, the isolation. We said, this isn't your fault. The unseen armor was forged by a system that doesn't hold you. So your body created something that would. That was true, and it was necessary. But today I want to go beneath the system, beneath the exhaustion, beneath the burnout, to the wound itself. Because there's a specific kind of pain that lives at the center of so many maternity care providers' experience. Burnout is what happens when you're exhausted from overwork. It's depletion, it's running on empty, and it's real, and it matters. But moral injury is something different. Moral injury is the deep wound that comes from being unable to provide care in the way you know is right. It's the damage that occurs when you are forced by a system, by a policy, by staffing, by time, by culture, to act against your own values, or to stand by while something happens that violates what you believe to be true about how mothers, babies, and families deserve to be cared for. It was first named in the context of military veterans, soldiers who weren't wounded by what was done to them, but by what they were asked to do, or what they witnessed and couldn't prevent. In recent years, the research has increasingly recognized that moral injury lives in healthcare too, and I believe it is one of the most under-discussed realities in maternity care. You know this feeling, even if you've never had the language for it. The ache you carry when you watch a mother receive care that you know doesn't honor her. When you see a birth unfold in a way that didn't need to happen and you couldn't change it. It's the quiet devastation of knowing what's best practice and what that looks like, and being told by the institution or by the constraints of the situation that there isn't time, isn't budget, isn't staffing, isn't policy for it. It's the moments you held a mother's hand after a traumatic birth, a birth that you believe could have been different, and you carried that home in your chest because there was nowhere to put it down. It's the morning you sat with a mother who's struggling with her milk supply because she didn't receive the early support she needed, and you knew, in your body, in your bones, that this was preventable. Moral injury is what happens when the system asks you to act against your own integrity, not once, but chronically, over weeks, months, years. Burnout says, I'm tired. Moral injury says, I'm wounded. And the wound isn't from overwork, it's from heartbreak. I've sat with so many mothers struggling with breastfeeding because of birth trauma, because of medical interventions that impacted early breastfeeding, and because many of them didn't have the support they needed in the early hours and days postpartum to really establish feeding. Here's a story that stayed with me. For this mother, her baby arrived 6 weeks early and spent time in the NICU. Mom worked so hard to establish her milk supply. She was pumping every 3 hours around the clock, doing everything she could because breastfeeding mattered to her deeply. And it was working. By the time her baby was discharged, she was exclusively drinking breast milk. This mother had done something remarkable. But before discharge, a nurse told her that her supply was strong enough that she could stop pumping and just latch the baby directly. No full feeding assessment was done. No lactation consultant was involved in that transition plan. I saw them about a week later for a house call. Mom's supply had dropped significantly. Baby hadn't gained weight well. And when I assessed the latch, baby wasn't transferring milk effectively. And this mother was blaming herself. That's the part that stays with me. Not just the clinical gap, though that was real and it was preventable, but the look on her face when she told me she thought it was her fault. The hours she had poured into feeding her baby in the NICU, and the system had let her walk out the door without the support she needed to protect what she had built. If she'd had a proper assessment with a lactation consultant before leaving the hospital, if there had been better support for that transition from the NICU to home, those struggles could have been prevented. That is moral injury. As a provider, I was not directly involved in the harm, but I witnessed it. I sat with the mother in the aftermath of harm that didn't need to happen. And that day, I carried it home with me in my body. Moral injury doesn't always look like what you'd expect. It doesn't always show up as tears or visible distress. Often it disguises itself. It can look like cynicism, the dark humor that creeps in when you've watched too many preventable things happen. The part of you that starts to say, what's the point? Nothing changes. It can look like rage, a simmering, persistent anger that doesn't have a clear target. Anger at the system, the institution, the profession, at yourself sometimes for staying in it. It can look like spiritual emptiness, a loss of meaning, the feeling that the work you entered with so much purpose has become hollow. You still do it. You still show up. But the spark that called you here feels very far away. It can look like shame. And this is the one that concerns me the most because shame makes us believe that the wound is proof of our inadequacy. That if we were better, stronger, more resilient, we wouldn't hurt like this. But that's a lie. The truth is the opposite. You wouldn't hurt like this if you didn't care this deeply. Moral injury is not evidence that you're failing. It is evidence that your values are intact. The pain you feel is directly proportional to the carrying you carry. Your heart has not hardened. It's been bruised, and bruised things need tending and protection, not pushing through. There's another layer here that I'm going to name carefully because it's tender and often gets overlooked. Alongside the moral injury, there's grief. Grief for the practitioner you intended to be. Do you remember her? The one who entered this field with a vision of how birth could be held, with a deep belief in the magic of breastfeeding and breast milk. The one who believed she was going to make a difference, who chose this work because she saw something broken and believed it could be made whole. Maybe she was going to be the midwife who never rushed a mother, the lactation consultant who always had time to listen, the doula who held the space with such steadiness that every family felt safe, the nurse who advocated so fiercely that the system had to listen. That version of you is not gone, but she's been bruised by reality, by the gap between the care you wanted to give and the care the system allowed, by the slow daily erosion of idealism that happens when you're swimming against a current every single day. And most of us have never stopped to grieve that. We just adjusted. We lowered our expectations. We told ourselves to be realistic. We armored up a little more each year, but the grief didn't go anywhere. It settled into the armor. It became part of its weight. And until we acknowledge it, until we say out loud or in the quiet of our own hearts, I am grieving the practitioner I wanted to be and the care I wanted to give and the system I believed could change, the armor can't fully loosen because part of what it's protecting us from is the tenderness of that grief. I chose to dedicate an entire episode to this because unnamed pain becomes shame, and shame grows in silence. When we don't have language for what we're experiencing, we internalize it. We make it personal. We assume everyone else is handling it better. We think, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I care too much. But when we name it, something shifts. Moral injury is not a personal failing. It is a collective wound inflicted by systems that prioritize efficiency over humanity. When you name it that way, you say, this is moral injury, this is what's happening to me, and shame begins to loosen its grip. Because you're no longer carrying it as a secret flaw. You're seeing it for what it is, a wound, one that healthcare providers around the world share, one that says far more about the system than it does about you. Naming is not fixing. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this episode will heal that wound. It won't. Healing moral injury requires time, community, witness, and often professional support. We will talk about the community piece in a later episode, but naming is the first act of tending. You cannot tend to a wound that you refuse to look at. So today, we look at it together. I'd like to invite you into a simple reflective practice. You can do this silently in your mind, or if you're somewhere private and it feels safe, you can whisper the words. You can also journal these prompts later if that feels more comfortable. There's no right way to do it, and you don't have to go to the hardest place. You can go wherever your body is ready to go today. Take a breath and settle back into your body. Feel the ground beneath you. The first prompt, the moment that still lives in my body is. You don't need to tell the whole story. Just notice what arises. A face, a room, a feeling. It might be recent or in the past. Let it be here without needing to narrate it. The second prompt, the care I wished I could have given is. And the third, the part of me that still believes this work can be different, says. Now, take a breath. Place a hand over your heart if that feels comfortable. And just acknowledge what is there. You don't have to process it all right now. You don't have to resolve it. You just had the courage to look at it. And that's enough for today. One more breath. Let your exhale be long and slow. And when you're ready, gently bring your awareness back to the space. I'm going to leave you with something today that's not a tool, not a framework, just a truth. If you're hurting from this work, if you carry moments in your body that you never told anyone about, if there's a gap between the care you want to give and the care you're able to provide, and that gap aches, that ache is not weakness. It is the sound of an intact heart. A heart that entered this profession because it believed that birth and mothering and the earliest days of a family's life deserved to be held with reverence and skill and tenderness. And that heart has not stopped believing it, even when the system has made it so very hard. Moral injury is real. It is distinct from burnout, but often contributes to it. And it deserves its own language, its own acknowledgement, and its own tending. You are not too sensitive. You are not failing. You are wounded, and wounds can heal, not by pushing harder, not by caring less, not by armoring up, but by being witnessed, by being named, and by being held gently, honestly, in the company of others who understand. For now, just know you are not carrying this alone, not anymore. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. I'm so grateful you took the time to nourish yourself today. If this episode helped you feel a little less alone and a little more steady, I invite you to follow or subscribe and continue nurturing rest, resilience, and healing. And if you know someone who would benefit from the ecosystem of support we're cultivating here, please share the podcast with them. Until next time, be gentle with yourself.